Genesis 32. Genesis. I don't know how long exactly we've been in the book of Genesis, but it's been a long time. And if you remember, we've been over a lot of truth out of the book of Genesis. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth, right? And we went through the creation. We went through how that after God created the heaven and the earth, Satan was on the earth, and he had kingdoms, and he had cities, and he had nations, and he had traffic and trade. And Jeremiah 4 tells us all about that, and Ezekiel and some in Isaiah. And we saw that God made man, Adam, and God gave Adam dominion. Satan had failed in his dominion over the earth, so God destroyed the earth. God gave Adam the earth, and he gave Adam dominion over everything in the earth. And Adam failed. And all of mankind failed miserably. And what happens in Genesis 6? God destroys the earth with a flood. It's the second time he did that, destroying the world with a flood. After Genesis 6, I think it's in Genesis 9, God helps God helps Noah off the ark, and after he gets off the ark, God tells Noah, I want you to have dominion. And by the way, thank the Lord, you can eat meat now.
Amen.
But I want you to have dominion, and I want you to replenish the earth. God keeps choosing a man and telling him, I want you to replenish the earth. That is God's desire from the beginning. It's very obvious. He wanted someone in his own image, a son of God, to populate the earth, obviously, righteously, and leave out the wickedness. And God told Noah that, and what happens in the first generation? The devil gets in there and tries to mess up that godly seed, once again, with Cain, and, commits sodomy with Noah, and it's just a mess. Scoot forward to Genesis 12, and we meet Abram, and God chooses this Hebrew, this man who is a Chaldean, and he tells him, I will be your God, you'll be my son. He tells him, I'll give you a blessing. You'll be the father of many nations. You'll have children as the multitude of the stars in heaven. So many people are going to come out of you, great nations. And out of these shall all the families of the earth be blessed. And I'll give you a chunk of land. All of Israel and what today is like Kuwait and Iraq and all that whole area, Abraham, I'll give to you. And Abraham has a son, Isaac. Not easily, right? It takes years and years and patience and trusting in the promises. And Isaac shows up, and then Isaac eventually, all right, Isaac has Jacob and Esau, right? And we're learning about Jacob and Esau now, but I wanted to zoom out a little bit. We're zoomed in on Jacob right now, looking at the details of Jacob's life. Don't forget who he is in the big picture. This is the grandson of Abraham. This is the one that God is going to populate the earth with. The sons of Jacob are the Jews, and those are who are going to populate the earth in eternity. That is who God wants replenishing the earth, because he chose Abram at the time. And right now we're looking here at Jacob and how he fits into his role as, grandson of the leader of the Jews. Genesis 32. If you remember, Jacob is now leaving Laban, his father-in-law, and all the mess that he had there for 20 years. Remember how he sneaked around and stole some extra cattle? That Jew manipulated the stock and got out of Laban, the white man's territory, the Syrian's territory, and is now moving back south towards the land of his father Isaac. And Jacob went on his way, and the angels of God met with him. Now, every time Jacob has started to travel, God has met with him up till now. And I wish God, it'd be cool for God to show up every time you hopped in the car and took a trip somewhere. But that's what was happening to Jacob. And now it says the angels of God met with him. And notice in the next verse, when Jacob saw them, he said, this is God's host. And remember, the Bible helps you understand the Bible. Anytime you see this phrase, the host of God, or the host of heaven, what do you think that's talking about?
Angels.
There you go. So how do you know that, Daniel? Hebrew, Greek? Commentaries? No. Just
English.
King James Bible. One verse after another, line upon line. This is God's host. And he called the name of that place Mahanaim. And Jacob sent messengers before him to Esau his brother unto the land of Seir. There's another reminder for you. Seir I showed you this just a couple weeks ago. Seir, in the land of Edom. Who is that talking about?
Esau.
Right, Esau. Esau is called Edom. His land is called Edom. His descendants are called Edomites. And the land is called Seir. And it has a mountain in it that gets referenced an awful lot, Mount Seir. So when you see these words, you know we're talking about Jacob's brother Esau. And Jacob sent messengers before him to Esau his brother unto the land of Seir, the country of Edom. Does anybody have a guess as to why he sent messengers before him to his brother Esau? What's your guess?
He wanted to plan something.
To plan something? That's a safe guess. Yeah, he kind of had a plan. Who's got an idea?
He was probably still afraid that Esau was mad at him.
The last time he saw his brother wanted to murder him. So he's thinking, maybe I should send a couple guys to kind of test the waters and see how Esau's feeling. Look at the next verse. And he commanded them, saying, Thus shall ye speak unto my lord Esau. He's calling him my lord now. Thy servant Jacob saith thus. He's using a little flattery here. I have sojourned with Laban and stayed there until now. And I have oxen and asses, flocks and men servants and women servants. And I have sent to tell my lord that I may find grace in thy sight. And the messengers returned to Jacob, saying, We came to thy brother Esau, and also he cometh to meet thee, and 400 men with him. So Jacob, obviously, what is he thinking? Right away, he's coming to kill me. He's got 400 people to get the job done. He's going to kill me. That is Esau's plan. Then Jacob was greatly afraid and distressed. So what does Jacob do? Jacob, his whole life up until now, anytime he's presented with a challenge, he has a choice. He could take it like a man and have faith in God and go through the challenge righteously, or he could plot and scheme and come up with a little plan to get through this thing in a sneaky way and come out on top. That's what happened with his mom, and that's what happened first with Esau with the red pottage. He stole Esau's birthright. That's what happened with Esau's blessing. He tricked his father to get Esau's blessing. With Laban, Laban said, all right, you can leave. And what did Jacob do? Okay, I'll work for a couple years for some cattle and leave. No, he thought, how can I steal the most possible from Laban while still following the letter of the law here? Jacob's a sneaky deceiver up until now. That's his testimony. And right here, he has a challenge ahead of him. And what does he do? Take it like a man? No. He doesn't face it honestly. Here's what he does. He divided the people that was with him and the flocks and herds and the camels into two bands. He took all his people, and imagine they have camels and all the stuff with them. He divided some over here, some over here. Why? And said, if Esau come to the one company and smite it, then the other company which is left shall escape. And Jacob said, O God of my father Abraham, and God of my father Isaac, the Lord which saidst unto me, return unto thy country and to thy kindred, and I will dwell with thee. I will deal well with thee. I am not worthy of the least of all the mercies and of all the truth which thou hast showed unto thy servant. For with my staff I have passed over this Jordan, and now I am become two bands. Deliver me, I pray thee, from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau, for I fear him, lest he will come and smite me, and the mother with the children. And thou saidst, I will surely do thee good, and make thy seed as the sand of the sea, which cannot be numbered for multitude. So Jacob kind of does a half-good thing here, right? What he could have done would be pray to God and ask for help and go face it like a man. Instead, what he did was, first, let me do my plan and let me figure out what makes sense for me. Let me lean unto my understanding first and break everything into two bands, and then I'll ask the Lord for help. So he's asking the Lord, that's a good thing, but it's after he's already made his own plan of how he's going to save his own hide. And then I'll trust in God after I've got my plan figured out. Verse 13, and he lodged there that same night, and took of that which came to his hand, a present for Esau his brother. 200 she-goats and 20 he-goats, 200 ewes and 20 rams, 30 milch camels with their colts, 40 kine and 10 bulls, 20 she-asses and 10 foals. And he delivered them into the hand of his servants, every drove by themselves, and said unto his servants, Pass over before me, and put a space betwixt drove and drove, And he commanded the foremost, saying, When Esau my brother meeteth thee, and asketh thee, saying, Whose art thou, and whither goest thou, and whose are these before thee? Then thou shalt say, They be thy servant Jacob's. It is a present sent unto my lord Esau. And behold, also he is behind us. And so commanded he the second and the third, and all that followed the droves, saying, On this manner shall ye speak unto Esau when ye find him. So, not only has he broken into two bands, so if Esau gets one, the other one can run away, he's also sending 3 groups of men with gifts to pacify Esau. So he sent 1 group, 2 groups, 3 groups. Hey, you guys, we're trying to prepare the soil here as much as possible. We want to calm Esau down. If he's coming real mad, maybe he'll change his mind if he sees 20 milk camels where he can get milk for his family and get rich, and all these she-asses and goats and all this stuff. He's trying to, first he used flattery by sending his servants to say, Oh Lord, your servant Jacob is going to come. He tried to flatter. Now he's trying to bribe with his money. Sorry. What verse are we on?
20.
Thank you. And say ye moreover, Behold, thy servant Jacob is behind us, for he said, I will appease him with the present that goeth before me, and afterward I will see his face. Peradventure he will accept of me. So went the present over before him, and himself lodged that night in the company. And he arose up that night, and took his 2 wives, and his 2 women servants, and his 11 sons. How many sons?
11.
So Benjamin, the youngest, hasn't been born yet. His 11 sons, and passed over the ford Jabbok. And he took them and sent them over the brook, and sent over that he had. And Jacob was left alone. This seems a little crazy to me. Jacob sent his family on the path before him, and he stayed behind. If I know my family's about to come into danger, I want to be the first one to face the danger. I don't want to send my family to danger before me. And I'm not sure that's exactly what's happening here, but I know that when I'm in an airport, I like to send my family on through security before I get there, because the most dangerous part in the airport is outside of security, where any old rando can walk in with a gun or with a bomb and give you a bad day. I want my family in security where it's safer. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of the principle. And I think I just contradicted myself, didn't I? That didn't make any sense. Either way, it seems to me like he's sending his family on ahead of him, and he's staying behind here. That's what just happened. Verse 24. And Jacob was left alone, and there wrestled a man with him until the breaking of the day. So Jacob's alone over here, and he wrestles with a what? A man until the breaking of the day. So he's wrestled with this guy all night. And when he saw that he prevailed not against him, when the man saw that he prevailed not against Jacob, he touched the hollow of his thigh, and the hollow of Jacob's thigh was out of joint as he wrestled with him. So I'm not positive what the hollow of the thigh is. I reckon it's your hip joint. And if your hip's out of joint, it's hard to wrestle. You need your hip, you need to bend, and you need to use your leg in order to wrestle with somebody. And if you've ever wrestled with somebody, you know how fast you get tired. If you watch professional fighting matches, I mean, they might go 15 rounds, and each round might be, 2 or 3 minutes each. That's maximum 45 minutes right there, and those guys are beat by the end of those 45 minutes. This guy wrestled all night, and the man he was wrestling with couldn't prevail, so he touched his hip, and he put his hip out of joint, or the hollow of his thigh out of joint. And I can't imagine how tired Jacob must have been, because wrestling takes it out of you. Why was Jacob wrestling with this guy? That's the question. Verse 26. And he said, Let me go, for the day breaketh. And he said, I will not let thee go. This is Jacob talking. I will not let thee go, except thou bless me. I don't know what's going on here. It's weird. I don't know what Jacob was thinking. I don't know if he knew this was an angel. I don't know what. And he said unto him, What is thy name? And he said, Jacob. And he said, Thy name shall be called no more Jacob, but Israel. For as a prince hast thou power with God and with men, and hast prevailed. And Jacob asked him, and said, Tell me, I pray thee, thy name. And he said, Wherefore is it that thou dost ask after my name? And he blessed him there. And Jacob called the name of the place Peniel, for I have seen God face to face, and my life is preserved. So this is probably the angel of the Lord is probably Jesus Christ before he was Jesus Christ. The word of the Lord, capital W. And later on in the book of 2 Kings, I've shown you the verse before. When he's talking about this story, he says it was the word of the Lord that came unto Jacob. This was pre-incarnate Christ. And Jacob saw him face to face, and his life was preserved, and he got a blessing. And he got his name changed from what? Jacob to what?
Israel.
Israel. There's a couple people who got their names changed in the Bible. Can you think of them? Abram got his name changed to? Abraham. Sarah to? Sarai to Sarah, right? Any others? I'm thinking of two others, at least.
One is Saul or possible.
Well, you can look for that, but as far as I can tell, God, it never says that God changed his name to Saul at any certain point, or from Saul to Paul. God definitely did start calling him Paul, and everybody did too, but there's not a point where it says he got his name changed. What'd you say?
I said Peter.
Peter.
Yeah.
God said, Simon, thou shalt not he would call him Peter, or Cephas, a stone. There's one more I'm thinking of. God changed all those people's names. There's one more I'm thinking of whose name got changed. Well, technically four of them.
Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego.
Yeah, Daniel, Hananiah, Azariah, and Mishael. Those were their Jewish good names. They got changed to Belteshazzar, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Lots of name changes in the Bible. There's a couple more probably, but those are the ones that came to my mind. Right here, when God changes someone's name, he has a reason for it. And right here, he's changing his name from Jacob, which is like a deceiver or a usurper, somebody who sneaks around and tricks. That's what Jacob means. He's changing his name to Israel, which, if you look at the verse, he says, as a prince hast thou power with God and with men. So Israel is meaning like a prince with power. Verse 31, and as he passed over Penuel, the sun rose upon him, and he halted upon his thigh. Here's Jacob going on, and I wonder what his wife asked when he showed up. What in the world? Verse 32, therefore the children of Israel eat not of the sinew which shrank, which is upon the hollow of the thigh, unto this day. So apparently the Jews made it a custom because of that, not to eat that certain part of the body on an animal, because Jacob had his shrunk. Because he touched the hollow of Jacob's thigh in the sinew that shrank. Chapter 33. And Jacob lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, Esau came. So we've got the wrestling match with an angel with Jesus Christ is in the past now, and Jacob is now looking. He lifted up his eyes, and what does he see? Esau came, and with him, 400 men. And he divided the children unto Leah and unto Rachel and unto the two handmaids. And I reckon he probably gave each woman the children that she bore. And if you remember, they each had some kids. Rachel only had one, and the rest had a few or several. And he put the handmaids and their children foremost. So poor Bilhah and Zilpah over here and their kids got thrown in the front group. Foremost. And Leah and her children after. This is terrible. Leah and her children after.
It's collateral damage.
Yeah. And Rachel and Joseph say hindermost. So, in the beginning, when they got married, obviously, Jacob didn't love Leah, he loved Rachel. And Laban tricked him and gave him Leah as his wife. And the Bible says that Leah was tender-eyed, and we learned, not only is she tender-eyed, we learned, poor thing, she just wasn't good-looking. And she was hated of her husband. And she was barren for a time and not barren for other times, and she just had a rough run. One good thing Leah had going for her was she had multiple kids. I think she had 4 or maybe even 6 kids. You probably have it in your notes there, how many she had. You know what's happening. Pastor called it collateral damage. He had an order of priorities here. I mean, if some of us are going to die, it might as well be, if it's me, I'm probably keeping all my wives and kids with me and sending my servants and the animals out first. I don't know what he was thinking exactly. All I know is if you're Bill and Zopa, you probably don't have a smile on your face right here. And he's sending them out to the slaughter first, and then behind them, Leah, and behind her, the one he loves, and his boy, his only child, with the woman that he loves. And this is a recurring theme here. Jacob has a favorite wife, and he has a favorite boy. What's his favorite boy's name?
Joseph.
We're about to read 13 chapters of the Bible about that boy here in a little bit. Verse 3, and he passed over before them and bowed himself to the ground 7 times until he came near to his brother. So, at the last minute, I don't know if he planned to do this the whole time, but Jacob does go ahead and he meets Esau first. And how many times does he bow himself?
7 times.
He's making it very obvious to Esau, I don't want to fight. And Esau ran to meet him and embraced him and fell on his neck. This should remind you of the story of the prodigal son. When he came home, what did the father do?
Fell on his neck.
He ran and fell on his neck.
That's right.
And that's what the Lord does to somebody who comes back to him. He doesn't stand there and wait for you to get to the porch. Well, you finally came back. No. He runs to meet, grabs, embraces. He loves you. He wants you there. Esau ran to meet him. And I would imagine if you're Jacob and Esau is dead sprinting at you, you're probably thinking, well, it was a good life. I enjoyed living, you know. He's probably thinking, I'm about to get killed. But what does he get instead? Embracing, and he falls on his neck and kissed him, and they're wept. And he lifted up his eyes and saw the women and the children and said, Who are those with thee? And he said, The children which God hath graciously given thy servant. And then the handmaidens came near, they and their children, and they bowed themselves. And Leah also with her children came near and bowed themselves. And after came Joseph near and Rachel, and they bowed themselves. And he said, What meanest thou by all this drove which I met? And he said, These are to find grace in the sight of my Lord. And Esau said, I have enough. My brother, keep that thou hast unto thyself. And Jacob said, Nay, I pray thee, if now I have found grace in thy sight, then receive my present at my hand. For therefore I have seen thy face, as though I had seen the face of God, and thou wast pleased with me. Take, I pray thee, my blessing that is brought to thee, because God hath dealt graciously with me, and because I have enough. And he urged him, and he took it. And he said, Let us take our journey, and let us go, and I will go before thee. And he said unto him, My Lord knoweth that the children are tender. So Jacob is telling Esau, You know, my kids are young, they're tender. And the flocks and herds with young are with me. And if men should overdrive them one day, all the flock will die. Let my Lord, I pray thee, pass over before his servant, and I will lead on softly. So you go on home fast with your 400 men. I'll take my time getting there. He says, I will lead on softly, according as the cattle that goeth before me, and the children be able to endure, until I come unto my Lord, unto Mount Seir. So he says, you go on ahead to where? Seir, and you go quick, and I'll take my time as the cattle and the children can handle it, and I'll meet you where?
Seir.
I'm going to come into Mount Seir, is what Jacob told his brother. And Jacob, verse 15. And Esau said, Let me now leave with thee some of the folk that are with me. And he said, What needeth it? Let me find grace in the sight of my Lord. I don't need that. Verse 16. So Esau returned that day on his way unto Seir. And Jacob journeyed to... He told him he was going to go to Seir, right?
Right.
Where did he journey to?
Sukkot.
Yeah, Sukkoth, Succoth, whatever. And built him an house. He built a house. That takes a minute. That takes a little bit of time. He did not go to Seir where he told his brother he was going to go. Once again, Jacob saw this happy reunion, and still in the back of Jacob's mind is probably, Esau might change his mind here at any time and decide to kill me. I don't think I'm going to go to Seir. I think I'm going to go find my own place to hang out. Jacob journeyed to Succoth and built him an house and made booths for his cattle. Therefore, the name of the place is called Succoth. And Jacob came to Shalem, a city of Shechem, which is in the land of Canaan, when he came from Padanaram, and pitched his tent before the city. And he bought a parcel of a field where he had spread his tent at the hand of the children of Hamor, Shechem's father, for 100 pieces of money. And he erected there an altar and called it El Elohe Israel. Interesting. Jacob has gone back on his word. He dodged Mount Seir. He stayed away from his brother, and he went to a place called Shechem, a city called Succoth. And we're going to see in the next chapter why that's so important. Chapter 34. By the way, when we were naming all of Jacob's kids, he had 4 women that he had kids with, right? Bilhah, Zilpah, are those right?
Yep.
Okay, Bilhah, Zilpah, Leah, and Rachel, and they all had kids, and he had 11 children by all of these women, and it mentions 11 boys, and it mentions 1 woman, and her name was Dinah, right?
Right.
Right. And Dinah was whose daughter?
Leah.
Leah's daughter.
Leah, yeah.
Chapter 34, verse 1. And Dinah, the daughter of Leah, which she bare unto Jacob, went out to see the daughters of the land. Here's problem number 1. Dinah, the little girl, I don't know how old she is. My guess is going to be, anywhere from probably 15 to 20, somewhere in there, maybe 13, maybe 25, I don't know. All I know is she's a young virgin at this point, and she's going out to do what? To see the daughters of the land. And what land are they in? The land of the Canaanites. What do we know about the Canaanites so far? First, we know that they're descendants of Cain, the wicked, the evil, they're bad. We know that the Canaanites are, according to God, they're so wicked that he wants to get them out of the land and the Jews into the land. We know that Esau married 2 Canaanite women and they displeased his parents. We know that Canaanites are not people that you ought to be around. We know that Abraham and Isaac both wanted their boys to go out of the land of Canaan to find a wife, because I don't want you to take a wife of the land of Canaan. I don't like Canaanite women, was the family tradition here. We don't need to be around the Canaanite women. They're evil. They'll have a bad influence on you. They'll ruin you. And here, Dinah, first thing, I want to go out and see the daughters of the land. I want to see what the girls around are like. I want to go to school and meet the other girls. You know? I don't know how old she is, but same idea here. She wants to go out and see what the people are like. Probably a bad idea. Jacob probably should have done a better job protecting her from things like this. She didn't need to go out on her own and meet the daughters of the land. She needed to stay around the family and be safe at this time. And when Shechem, the son of Hamor, the Hivite, prince of the country, saw her, he took her and lay with her and defiled her. Well, that's what Dinah gets for going out on her own. It's terrible. It's unfortunate. She's a victim. But she went out on her own to see the daughters of the land, and what did she get? A harsh reality of men are evil and they'll do wicked things to you. He lay with her and defiled her. And his soul clave unto Dinah, the daughter of Jacob, and he loved the damsel and spake kindly unto the damsel. Okay, so at least he didn't run away or kill her or anything like that. And Shechem spake unto his father Hamor, saying, Get me this damsel to wife. And Jacob heard that he had defiled Dinah, his daughter. Now his sons were with his cattle in the field, and Jacob held his peace until they were come. And Hamor, the father of Shechem, went out unto Jacob to commune with him. And the sons of Jacob came out of the field when they heard it. And the men were grieved, and they were very wroth, because he had wrought folly in Israel in lying with Jacob's daughter, which thing ought not to be done. Which thing ought not to be done, right? If there is a man and a woman not married, they should not lie together, right? This thing ought not to be done. You know what God calls? People today call it a one-night stand. You know what God calls it? Defiling a woman. And even though in today's world we think so lightly of fornication, it will defile a man. It will defile a woman. We just heard the verse a little bit ago. He that committeth fornication sinneth against his own body. It's a thing that destroys you. It is wicked. It is evil. You need to be protected from fornication. And when a young woman is forced to commit fornication with a man, she is defiled. And in today's society, it's like, okay, well, that happened, that's fine. Back in the Bible, they recognized how serious this was. This was a big deal. If you found out that your daughter was defiled, she's hopeless. In the Bible times, for the rest of her life, she's no longer a clean and pure virgin that'll be a wonderful wife for somebody. She's a poor girl who got defiled and had her life and her chance of a lovely marriage taken away from her because she got defiled at a young age. It was a big deal to the family, and Jacob here is showing a little restraint. If you found out that happened, and then the boy who did its father shows up at your house, you're probably not going to have nice words to say right then. That's what's happening right here. It's a big deal. This is ground shaking for the family, and it says that right there in verse 7. They were very wroth, these sons of Jacob, because he had wrought folly in Israel in lying with Jacob's daughter, which thing ought not to be done. And this is something. Not only did they take it seriously back then, we've got to recognize that it's a serious and important thing to protect our children from this. And the world will tell you time and time again, sex is normal, sex is fine, sex is okay. Young kids should experiment, not children, but teenagers, young women, young men, college-age women, they should be able to experiment and be free and learn their sexuality. That is just as wicked as sodomy. And the Bible says it ought not to be done. And Hamor communed with them, saying, the soul of my son Shechem longeth for your daughter. I pray you, give her him to wife, and make ye marriages with us, and give your daughters unto us, and take our daughters unto you, and ye shall dwell with us, and the land shall be before you. Dwell, and trade ye therein, and get you possessions therein. This reminds me of something. Shechem is telling Jacob, give us your daughters, we'll give you our daughters, we'll intermarry, we'll become one people, we'll break down the borders of race in between us, and we'll become one. The Jews and the Canaanites. Obviously, the Jews should not mix with the Canaanites like this. This is against the Lord's will for the Jews. This is against what Abraham and Isaac set the precedent for. This is not a good thing. But what does he promise him right here? He says, verse 9, make ye marriages with us, give your daughters unto us, take our daughters unto you. Look at verse 10. And ye shall dwell with us, and the land shall be before you. Hey, if you give me your daughters, I'll give you the land. Just a minute ago, like just a chapter ago, the Lord met with Jacob and reminded him that he's going to get a piece of land, right? Just a few chapters ago, Isaac was told, you're going to get this piece of land. Several chapters ago, Abraham was told, you're going to get this piece of land. God had a plan of giving the land to the Jews, right?
Right.
That's going to happen eventually, amen?
Amen.
The Jews are going to get the land. Right here, Shechem offers Jacob the land through bad means, out of God's will. You'll get the land, but it'll be the wrong way. What does that remind you of? The devil tempting Jesus in the wilderness. Jesus Christ is going to be given all the kingdoms of the earth in the proper time, God's way. The devil offered Jesus, I'll give you all the kingdoms now if you do it my way. Very, very similar. The devil will offer you a good thing the wrong way. Don't take his offer. If you have to do wrong to get something good, wait. The Lord will give it to you later, I promise. If he doesn't give it to you in this life, you'll get it in the next. Let's see what Jacob says. And Shechem said unto her father and unto her brethren, let me find grace in your eyes, and what ye shall say unto me I will give. Ask me never so much dowry and gift, and I will give according as ye shall say unto me, but give me the damsel to wife. And the sons of Jacob answered Shechem and Hamor his father deceitfully. So now we're learning a little bit about Jacob's son. He has passed on the gene of lying and deceit. Jacob was a deceiver, right? And the apple does not fall far from the tree. The sons of Jacob answered deceitfully and said, because he hath defiled Dinah their sister. And they said unto them, we cannot do this thing to give our sister to one that is uncircumcised, for that were a reproach unto us. But in this will we consent unto you, if you will be as we be, that every male of you be circumcised, then will we give you our daughters unto you, and we will take your daughters to us, and we will dwell with you, and we will become one people. But if you will not hearken unto us to be circumcised, then will we take our daughter, and we will be gone. And their words pleased Hamor and Shechem, Hamor's son. So basically, yeah, you can have Dinah, but you all have to get circumcised because that's what you have to do to be a Jew. So if all of you, if you men of Shechem get circumcised, you can have Dinah, right? Verse 19. And the young man deferred not to do the thing because he had delight in Jacob's daughter. And he was more honorable than all the house of his father. This right here is interesting. This is a Gentile, a Canaanite, who has done wickedly in defiling Dinah, but then afterwards, he does the right thing. He's honorable. He does not leave this woman in the past in the dust. He wants to take Dinah as his wife. He wants to do the right thing. He wants to get married. He wants to be honorable. That's what the Bible says right here. He was more honorable than all the house of his father. So, what's he going to do? Okay, the right thing for me to do, and I love this woman Dinah, so I guess we're all going to have to get circumcised, boys, and then we can marry with the Jews. Verse 20, and Hamor and Shechem his son came unto the gate of their city, and communed with the men of their city, saying, these men are peaceable with us. Therefore, let them dwell in the land, and trade therein. For the land, behold, it is large enough for them. Let us take their daughters to us for wives, and let us give them our daughters. Only, it sounds pretty good up till now. Only herein will the men consent unto us, for to dwell with us, to be one people. If every male among us be circumcised, as they are circumcised, shall not their cattle and their substance and every beast of theirs be ours? Only let us consent unto them, and they will dwell with us. And unto Hamor and unto Shechem his son hearkened all that went out of the gate of his city, and every male was circumcised, all that went out of the gate of his city. And it came to pass on the third day, when they were sore, so they got circumcised, and they were sore from the circumcision after 3 days. And what are they thinking? This is a great business deal for them. We get to enjoy Jacob's riches, and we get to trade with him. It was a profitable business deal, basically, is what's happening here. And Shechem gets Dinah, and we get Jacob's daughters. And on the third day, when they're sore, what happens? The two sons of Jacob, Simeon and Levi. The firstborn to Leah, wasn't it Reuben?
Yes.
Then we've got Simeon. Then we've got Levi. Then we've got Judah. Simeon and Levi, Dinah's brethren, took each man his sword and came upon the city boldly and slew all the males. So they got them all to get circumcised, and in the third day, when they were having pain, every man, the men were down. They weren't up for a fight, obviously. They were dealing with a pain, which is, you ought to deal honestly. It says in this passage that they were dealing deceitfully. If you're going to fight somebody and kill somebody, if you know you ought to fight somebody, you don't need to sneak around and try to weaken your opponent beforehand. Just fight the guy. Fight him face to face. Fight him the right way as a man. And I don't mean fist fight somebody. I mean, if you have to fight, don't sneak around. Christians, the Bible says, are to live honestly in the sight of all men. That is the duty of a Christian. And if you study war, the whole theory on war, ever since Sun Tzu in The Art of War, that massive book he wrote on, which is like the Bible of how to do war, the whole idea of the art of war is sneak, be deceitful. When you're weak, make yourself appear strong. When you're strong, make yourself appear weak. Act like you're going to go this way and then hit hard from this way. Act like you're going to go around them and then hit them hard from the front. It's all about deceiving, deception, faking people out. And that's not the way a Christian should be. That's not how God's people should deal with people. They ought to be honest and open. And these guys wouldn't even fight the men of Shechem honorably over this deal. They lied to them, got them to do something honorable, and then while they were down, dealing with the pain from this honorable thing that they did, these two boys, Simeon and Levi, went and murdered all the men of the city. They came upon the city boldly and slew all the males. So you say, hey, Reuben was Jacob's firstborn. Why couldn't he be the father of the Messiah? Well, we'll see. Simeon and Levi, they were next in line. Why couldn't they be the father of the Messiah? Well, I reckon God didn't want two people who murdered an entire city of Canaanites dishonestly to be the father of the Messiah. So who does it get passed to? Judah. Jesus becomes of the tribe of Judah. That's where the Messiah comes out. Verse 26, and they slew Hamor and Shechem his son with the edge of the sword, and took Dinah out of Shechem's house and went out. And the sons of Jacob came upon the slain and spoiled the city because they had defiled their sister. They took their sheep and their oxen and their asses and that which was in the city and that which was in the field, and all their wealth and all their little ones and their wives took they captive, and spoiled even all that was in the house. And Jacob said to Simeon and Levi, ye have troubled me to make me stink among the inhabitants of the land. Tell me another Bible version isn't better than the King James Bible. You make me stink. You make me smell bad. I love that. There's no better book than the King James Bible. Ye have troubled me to make me to stink among the inhabitants of the land, among the Canaanites and the Perizzites, and I, being few in number, they shall gather themselves together against me, and slay me, and I shall be destroyed, I and my house. And they said, should he deal with our sister as with an harlot? Couple things here, and I know sometimes it might feel like I'm just reading you the passage. We're trying to get the truths out of the passage, and sometimes they're kind of long. And a good lesson to be learned here. Not only should you be open and honest, they tricked these guys and they murdered them. Obviously, you shouldn't trick and murder people. But right here, their dad tells them, what are you guys doing? You are hurting my reputation, and you're going to make everyone around here want to come kill us, because they're going to think the next city that Jacob rolls into, his boys are going to murder everyone there too. Lesson 1. When your parent is chiding you or chastising you, the first thing you need to do back is, should they get to deal with our sister as with an harlot? No. When your father is dealing with you, you take it and you shut up. As a child, you ought to love your father's chastisement. You ought to love his correction and love his reproof, not talk back. Also, they're justifying murder over their sister. This reminds me a lot of the South. When I was in California, you didn't meet a lot of people who would hit somebody. You know, if you talk trash about somebody's sister in the South where I grew up, you're probably going to get beat up by the family. You know, and if you do something like this to their sister, you might get killed. That's common in the South around here. You know, you put your hands on a man's daughter, you're liable to get hurt real bad by that man. You know, that's kind of how the South is. But according to this passage, that's not good. Their justification was, if somebody treats our sister like she's just some harlot, then they're going to get what's coming to them. You know, and our command as Christians is recompense to no man evil for evil. This is hard to swallow. Jacob was wronged. Absolutely. So were his brothers. Dinah was wronged. But after the wrong deed was done, these Canaanite men wanted to do right, and they shouldn't have intermarried, but they maybe should have let Dinah be this man's wife or just kept her. They didn't have to go and murder the entire city. And that sounds obvious, but it's the spirit of the thing that I'm trying to point out, is that if somebody does your family wrong, you don't need to go out of your way to get their family back. You know, the old Hatfields and McCoys up in West Virginia, it's Romeo and Juliet all over again. There's always been family battles and family feuds. As a Christian, when you are done wrong, our command is to take wrong, to be defrauded, to let yourself get slapped in the face. And if that happens, all right, fine. I don't need to slap you back. And that matters for a 5-year-old, for a 10-year-old, for a 15-year-old. If you get slapped in the face, you don't need to go fighting, slapping back. If you get punched in the head, it's okay to maybe get out of there, but you don't need to punch the guy in the head back. As an adult, if your family gets dishonored or disrespected like this, or your daughter gets messed with, or your son gets messed with, somebody steals from your family, you don't need to get in the car and go after that guy. Take wrong, accept that it happened, give it to the Lord, and move on. You know? And that's hard to do, but it's something you ought to do. Any questions at all about Genesis 32, 3, 4? I've got several about, especially that wrestling match between Jacob and the angel. What in the world was that about? Why did he ask him to bless? I've never been wrestling somebody and said, no, you got to bless me before we go, you know? He obviously knew something was happening there, but I love the Bible. I don't know about you. I would rather read this all day than Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings or any other literature out there. This is the best book on the planet. There's an old Disney movie called Melody Time. Have any of you seen that? Does that ring a bell? There's an old Disney cartoon, old, and it's got animated a couple different things, but one of the stories in there is Johnny Appleseed, the American guy who planted, supposedly all the apple trees in the United States, and there's a little song in there where there's an angel talking with Johnny Appleseed, and you'd never see this in Disney today, but he's talking to Johnny Appleseed, and he goes, and for reading? And he pulls out a Bible, and he goes, there ain't nothing better than your book. And I'm surprised that's still on Disney, but they let you see it if you look it up. It's on Melody Time. It's a really good one. Yeah, I love the Bible. Absolutely love it. Thankful for it.